The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everybody, welcome and thanks for joining us today. My name is Matt and I'm the Communications and Continuity Solutions Manager here at Soft Solutions. We also have Carl Thomson on with us, who is the lead sales engineer from StorageCraft. Today we'll be having a look at StorageCraft cloud services, cloud backup, and some general information around best practice. We're seeing a lot of interest around StorageCraft Cloud and having that ability to have an easy offsite backup, especially with the capability to virtualize in the StorageCraft Cloud. Obviously really important for the likes of New Zealand when we have horrible things like earthquakes and in general being a volcanic country. The uptake of the services has just been fantastic, so we thought we'd have a webinar today to cover off some more details around it. Please note we're also recording today, so this will be posted up on YouTube and a link will also be sent afterwards. So with that, I'd like to hand off to Carl to have a look at the StorageCraft Cloud.
Cool, thanks for that, Matt. So yeah, again, today we're going to focus on StorageCraft's disaster recovery as a service. Obviously, that entails leveraging our world-leading ShadowProtect backup and disaster recovery software solution. So that's obviously going to perform the backups on site, giving you local backup and DR. And then what we do is we replicate a copy of those backups into the StorageCraft cloud, giving you a very affordable all-inclusive disaster recovery service. So you can log into a web page and instantly boot servers. We've got some really cool things like our exclusive patent of virtual machine policy. So you can basically click one button and we can fail over the whole site, all of your VMs into the cloud and all of the networking and stuff you can pre-configure. So really cool, really easily. For our MSPs, this is fantastic because you don't have to go and invest in infrastructure to perform DR. You can just resell this service and make good margin on it. So really, in New Zealand, we've got a lot of partners that have been using ShadowProtect for years, and a lot of our partners are already replicating those backups perhaps to their office or to the data center. So this is really the next level. This is not replacing what you're doing today. This is adding on top, adding on the DR capabilities. The difference here is that, where you are replicating our backups today, you might have an archive or an offsite copy of those backups. The StorageCraft Cloud is more tailored and purpose-built for DR. So it's not around having a huge copy of the backup chain, it's around small retention but rapid recovery. So let's dig in and take a look. I'm going to start with a few slides, but then really we're just going to focus on a live demo and take a look at it, and I'll walk you through how to set up a new customer and stuff towards the end of that. So just firstly, taking a look at on-site, some of the key requirements and what you should be doing today and how that eventuates into our cloud. So obviously, as I've mentioned, we're using ShadowProtect to back up your physical and virtual machines. It's backing up to some local storage on site, ideally a backup server. One of the key things that you do need to be running somewhere in the site is the free image manager software. Image Manager needs to be used in conjunction with ShadowProtect. Obviously each VM and physical server has the ShadowProtect agent installed. That needs to be configured with what's called a continuous incremental backup schedule, and it needs to be an encrypted job so that the backups are all encrypted. Now, when you use a continuous incremental schedule, you note there ShadowProtect will tell you must use Image Manager with this option. So obviously with incrementals forever, we need Image Manager to consolidate and apply retention and constantly verify that those backups are all okay. So Image Manager is the piece that will obviously then replicate a copy of those backups off-site. So the key thing here to really understand is that the backups are local. By doing local backups, they're really fast, and it means that we can rapidly recover. So for example, if you've got a virtual infrastructure, one VM has a problem, we just want to recover that quickly back on site. When one VM has a problem, we don't need to fail that over into the cloud. I mean, we could, absolutely. We can site-to-site VPN and route between the two networks. But obviously then your other servers trying to access that one, or your users is now going across the internet, and the nature of that is there will be a performance hit depending on what your internet's like, and also at some point you then need to migrate it back. So it always makes sense to have local backups for rapid recovery, and we can obviously virtual boot if you had a backup appliance server, or whether you want to virtual boot straight back into your Hyper-V or VMware environments. So this has included virtual boots, not an existing feature, as well as Head Start Restore. And we focused a lot on this in the previous webinar we did on Tuesday. So if you missed that one, feel free to jump onto our YouTube channel to learn about the local backup and recovery options. That should always be the first part of architecting a disaster recovery as a service solution. And some of our successful partners are actually, the BDR appliance. It's just a Windows server or even a PC for a smaller site. But in some cases, partners are going as far as renting them to the customer, and it's part of a bundled solution that they're providing. But the next step is obviously Image Manager replicating a copy of the backups. So what's really cool about that is ShadowProtect could back up every 15 minutes, and then I could have Image Manager replicate perhaps just once a day in the evening, the consolidated version. So we can really reduce the bandwidth requirements. We can do throttling depending on the hours of the day and weekdays and weekends, etc. So we've got a lot more control by replicating a second copy, because we can reduce what needs to go offsite and what's required there. Obviously, in the event of having an entire site disaster, then obviously with the StorageCraft cloud, we can log into a web page and instantly virtualize. You don't need to call anyone, you can do it yourself. It's multi-tenancy, so the customer could log in and do it. There's no cost. The virtualization is part of the service plan you subscribe to. And the most popular plans are around $71 to $79 a month, and that includes the ShadowProtect licensing as well as a copy of the server in the StorageCraft cloud, up to 1 terabyte of storage. And there's no activation fees. There's no cost for virtualizing in our cloud. It includes up to 30 days of running time per year for however much CPU or memory that you need. So really affordable end-to-end disaster recovery service. Obviously, as I mentioned, it's purpose-built for disaster recovery. There's an all-inclusive, no extra cost process to then easily revert that back on site again when you're ready to cut back. So really cool. Obviously, you can replicate to your own site and perform your own DR if you've got that infrastructure investment already there. We've got options to replicate into Amazon S3, which is more around long-term, cost-affordable archival. But StorageCraft Cloud, again, is purpose-built for rapid virtualization and recovery with all the networking capabilities that you would need. So that's the key thing, is don't just think of ShadowProtect as a backup software. It is a disaster recovery solution, and adding in our cloud service allows our MSPs to sell or offer disaster recovery as a service to their customers. One of the other key things here I've just added in here is the Shadow Control. This Shadow Control is a free virtual appliance. Either the customer runs it on site or the MSP might run it in the cloud or in their office or data center. Shadow Control is another key component. When you're buying the cloud services from us, and that price point I mentioned is around the reseller buy price, what you're not just really being transparent about selling the cloud services to the customer, you're actually selling them a solution and an outcome. So you might include your management and monitoring fees. So using the free Shadow Control enables you to monitor the replication jobs, the backups, all of that visibility across all of your customers in one pane of glass. So leveraging Shadow Control to give you visibility, leveraging our complete end-to-end solution with the cloud services and the ShadowProtect software, you're combining those solutions together with you're managing and monitoring, and that's a solution you're providing the customers, that DR as a service. So that's what I mean there, is obviously we're enabling you to do that with our technology and our data center facilities, but you're obviously, we only sell to resellers. So you guys are wrapping this up into a solution that you're offering to your customers. So some of the benefits with the StorageCraft cloud is security and availability. So currently our cloud for APAC is based in Sydney in Australia. We're using NextDC, which is a tier 3 top level data center. It's highly distributed, scalable, and fault-tolerant cloud. So our cloud's boasting 5 nines of uptime, 99.999. We're using a very enterprise-grade, fault-tolerant distributed file system based on Ceph. So we have some very sophisticated engineers that manage that. It actually holds 3.7 copies of all of the data in our cloud. We can lose entire racks in the data center and maintain data integrity and uptime. So that's really important, and it's a huge investment by StorageCraft to achieve this, and so we're able to offer this to our customers to leverage that rather than have to invest in a solution themselves. Customization, so what you're going to see in my demo is that we've got a full portal that you can log in, you can manage it all yourself, you can provision customers on the fly. A lot of it's tailored around the service level and retention options that you want. So I'll be taking you through that in a minute. Control and flexibility. So again, it's all there in the cloud. The control is in your hands. You don't need to call us to activate the DR. You don't need to wait for hours for the servers to come up. You don't need to pay, a massive activation fee to do it. It's all inclusive in a small monthly fee. When you need it, it's there ready to go straight away. Advanced network recovery options. This is really important. And the feedback I get from partners is that StorageCraft does this very well. It's very advanced, allowing for complex environments, but it is also very easy. So we have basically a firewall that gets virtualized for each customer in our cloud, and it's completely configurable. So we've got a very easy to use front end to set up, VPNs, public IPs, port forwarding, configuring all your servers' IPs. And if you need to dig deeper, you're wanting to do, more complex things for larger customers or specialized environments, we can actually give you access to that whole firewall, and you can go in there and do whatever you need to do. So this is really cool. And obviously this is key to ensuring that, when you virtualize in our cloud, that, depending on what your customers need to do, they can access that data and continue their business. One-click failover. So this is one of my favorite things. Is StorageCraft actually come up with this idea, and we've got an exclusive patent for it. Basically, by pre-configuring your network, we then allow you to create a policy which then says, I want this server to boot first, which might be a domain controller, then I want these other servers to boot in this order. Once you've configured that and you're storing your encryption key and everything ready to go, you've got one button to click to bring up that whole site. So as I mentioned, if one or two machines have a problem, you're highly likely to want to actually just quickly recover them back on site. But if we have a whole site failover, we don't want to be sitting there one by one booting up each server in the cloud. We want that to be, automated in a process. And this is what the virtual machine policy can do, which I will show you. So just finally, this is really my last slide. Actually, there's one more after this. So on the left, I have got the service levels. There's 3 service levels: Cloud Basic, Cloud Plus, and Cloud Premium. So Cloud Basic is really just having a copy of your backups available in our cloud, and at any time you can download them or we ship you back a drive. Okay, so it's very basic service. Cloud Plus gives you that same functionality, as well as the ability to mount the backups in our cloud for fast file and folder recovery. So we can literally mount a backup within a few seconds. You can select files or folders, we zip them up and you can download them. So that has plenty of use cases where people might not need to actually virtualize the servers on the cloud, but they need to, something went horribly wrong. They need to access those backups and quickly download, a particular file or database out. And then Cloud Premium is really, we sell 90% of what we sell in APAC is Cloud Premium. This is the all-included DR as a service, the virtualizations of your systems and data in the cloud. So Cloud Premium is really what I'll be focusing on today, but you'll see all of the other capability as it's all included with that. So you need to choose a service level. That's one of the first things you do for each server that you send to our cloud. Each customer or each machine could have different service levels as well. So you can certainly mix or match. And then the second thing you need to consider is the retention level. The retention is how long or how many days do you want to keep backups available in our cloud for? So retention tier 1, we just keep the last 3 days. That has historically been the most popular plan. We're starting to see a trend now more towards retention tier 2. So that's giving us the last 5 days as well as the last 2 weekly recovery points. So that just gives us a bit more flexibility. If something happened today, it's a Thursday, maybe tomorrow's a public holiday and we come back to work on Monday and something happened this afternoon, I might think, I need to, I need to get back 4 days ago or 3 days ago. I don't know what time this happened. So, sometimes having a bit more attention is becoming a bit more important now with things like ransomware. But I would assume mostly you're going to want the most recent backup in a lot of cases too. So then retention tier 3 just gives us a bit more flexibility. Obviously the price goes up a little bit for each of these retentions, 7 daily, 4 weekly, and 3 monthlies. And then of course we have a flexible option where you just determine whichever, you can say I want to keep 12 months up there, and that's no problem. And Soft Solutions can provide you with what's called the MSP calculator. And it's an easy sheet where you punch in, I've got 5 servers, I want 3 of these and 2 premiums, and I want, 1 on Flex, and this is what I want. And it tells you what your buy price will be each month. So, very flexible, customizable, each machine can be different. So it's really cool, and it allows you to get exactly what you want or to what you need for the customer. So just finally, I've got these points all around the wrong way. So The key requirements is obviously you need to use ShadowProtect and ideally our latest version. So either SPX or the latest version of our older ShadowProtect 5 software. So you make sure you're up to date before you start using our cloud. You need to configure ShadowProtect with a continuous incremental backup schedule. The job must be encrypted. So if you've got an existing job but you're not using encryption, you do have to start again with the backup job. And then obviously with that, you have to use Image Manager, which is going to perform the replication. And then finally, number 5. Now, this isn't actually a requirement that we enforce, but it's certainly something you should consider as you onboard a customer to our cloud is what's the plan? You need to know what the plan is with the customer. You need to talk to them and discuss it because, for example, their building burns down, so no one can come to work. You need to understand where's everyone going to go and who needs to access what. And only once you've done that do you even know what servers actually need to be in our cloud, what port forwarding or VPN access do you need to do. So, the building burns down, they might say, look, these 10 warehouse workers, all they did is the dispatch system. We don't need that in the cloud. If the warehouse is not up and functional, then they have nothing to do. You might then say, look, there's 5 people and all they need is email, and that's already in Office 365, so we don't need to worry about them. Then you might be left with, say, for example, 10 people, and 5 of them might need access to the remote desktop server that they used to use for remote access. So you might have that in the cloud along with the application and domain controller servers, and you might just use RD Gateway. So we know for those 5 users, we just need to do port forwarding. If we fail over the DNS record to the IP that we've requested in the cloud, then they don't even need to know that the server's just moved into the StorageCraft DR facility. It just continues to work as it always has. You might say, look, the other 5 people, we actually, they might work from home, in which case you can configure them with an open VPN account that they can run on their computers to connect into the cloud. Or you might say, look, actually, we're going to relocate them to a temporary office space or a shared office space, and we'll do an IPsec site-to-site VPN for those people. So they just plug their laptops into a switch. The IT, us as the IT provider, will put in a firewall that does a site-to-site VPN, and then they just continue to work like they would from the office as well. So having that plan is important because it enables you to think about what do I need to configure in the StorageCraft cloud, and ensure that I've got a bit of a plan to say, look, I need to call these people first. That's what they need to be able to do. That's the most important thing. It might be that they're a hotel and that certain people need access rapidly to see who was checked in, to see who was still in the building or whatever. So there's plenty of different scenarios that you need to consider to really enable you to be successful with getting things set up in advance. So let's just let's jump straight into a demonstration. So let me just cut out of here. So the key thing here, I guess, how long have we got? We've got just 10 minutes left. So I'm going to move quite quickly. If anyone's got any questions, please feel free to type them in, and I will come back to them at the end, and we'll go through that. So the key thing I want to do is just start with a very quick demonstration here, and what we're going to do is copy a bunch of data onto the desktop. Now, this is 8,500 files. So I'm actually going to use this to show you how effective ShadowProtect is at what it does. And then also at the same time, this backup is going to be replicated into the StorageCraft cloud, and we're going to rapidly virtualize that. So I'm going to show you how easy that is. What ShadowProtect's doing right now, it's installed, it's been doing backups, they're already in our cloud, is it's tracking changes in real time. That's what ShadowProtect does. It tracks in real time. So when I ask it to do a backup or when it's scheduled to do the next one, it's very quick at what it does. It already knows what's changed, doesn't need to muck around. It performs its VSS consistent snapshot so that when we do go to recover that backup, it's in a known, good, stable state. So what we'll do is we'll label this. It's currently 11:20 a.m. So I'll call this SoftSol 11.20 a.m. So we'll follow that round. Now what I'm going to do is open up ShadowProtect. So I've actually installed the console on here so I can show you exactly what's happening. Just while that's opening, I need to move fairly quickly. I'm just launching up Shadow Control, and I'm going to ask Shadow Control to go and run a backup right now. It did one 6 minutes ago, I just saw there. So click Run Job, and just rolling back, I can see that job's just gone green. It's now running. It's doing a quick check of the previous backups. It's now doing a VSS consistent check. So SQL, Exchange, SharePoint, Active Directory, any of those services, we're making sure we're getting a clean, stable state of those applications and databases. That can take, up to 30 seconds on a busy server. That's done. It's now writing the 8,500 files into an image. So that whole backup took just 23 seconds, so far quicker than it even took me to write that. That backup number, 3,092, okay? So let's jump down here into my image manager that I'm running. and I can see here the last transfer was 3091. So we'll just give Image Manager a second here to pick up that backup. It will immediately replicate that into the StorageCraft cloud, and then we'll jump in there and we'll virtualize that straight away. So it's very fast, it's fully automated. One of the key things when you're setting up a cloud job is to go in here under replication mode and you choose. So I'm saying immediately replicate the new backups. Or the default pricing options based on just sending the end of day. So obviously if I'm backing up every 15 minutes 24/7, that'll be sending 96 backups a day into our cloud, and that might consume more of your bandwidth and extrain that resource. So some people like to just send the consolidated daily backup image that happens once a day in the evening. So just going back here, I might need to just click off and back to refresh it. So I can now see here the last transfer, 3092. That backup has already been sent. It happened so quickly I didn't even notice, into our cloud. So jumping out of Image Manager and going into the StorageCraft Partner Portal. So if you're not already a managed service provider, again, reach out to Soft Solutions. They'll sign you up as a StorageCraft managed service provider, and you can log in here to our cloud services offering to perform, or configure customers for DR. So just clicking on my existing account here, this is, you can come in here, you can add in accounts where you define a username and password for each separate customer. This is going to show me a list. In fact, I can expand it out here of all of my different servers or machines in the cloud. And this one here, KT Server 02, that's actually the backup we just did in the Hyper-V VM. So if I just click on that, we can see here the real-time upload status. The last one here, that 3092 we did, is just complete. Because that's an intra-daily backup that I've just sent, we'll basically automatically produce a recovery point every day. But what I can do here is automatically generate a recovery point right now. So that by clicking this generate recovery point, it's going to give me my most recent backup as an option right now to recover. So it's always good if it's a real disaster, it's not like a ransomware or virus where you need to roll back, to generate the most recent recovery point so that we can ensure we're recovering the most recent data. So I can see here the 9:20 a.m. backup that we just did, and here's my C drive and the recovery partition. So from here, I can mount this recovery partition for file and folder recovery. That's what's included in Cloud Plus and Cloud Premium. But obviously I want to launch this VM. I want to do disaster recovery. So I'm not using the policy here, but I'll show you that in a minute. But I'm just going to launch this one machine. So I've selected that most recent backup by default. I'm going to put in my ShadowProtect encrypted password, which is required. And for testing, I'm going to say, please just destroy after 1 day. I don't want to keep that running. Obviously, if I enable real failover, we won't destroy the machine at all. It will continue to run. So I'm going to click virtualize. Now, what you'll notice here is that the first thing it's going to do is create the network. So for this customer, which is here is Carl Thomson, that's my name, for the first server that I virtualize at any current time, the first one that you power on, it will create the network. So that's virtualizing the firewall. And I'm going to take you through that in a minute. So that can take up to 60 seconds to spin up the firewall and get that running. The very next thing is it will create a virtual machine in our cloud based on that recovery point. By default, we will give every machine 2 CPU core and 6 gig of memory. So obviously, that's going to be sufficient for a lot of machines, but it's also not going to be enough for a lot of machines as well. So we encourage you to test it and in advance log a support request to say, hey, for these servers, can you please give my Exchange server, 32 gig of RAM and 8 cores, whatever you need. We don't charge for it, but we need you to ask once initially so that we can configure that machine with those specs. And then going forward, in any instance when you virtualize, it will always have that resource there. What we can't do today is we can't hot plug and play resource once you've virtualized a server. So we do ask that you request it in advance. Again, we don't charge for it. You can have whichever resource you need within reason. And you're up and running. So that is just one sort of tip I'll point out now, is we don't want you to be in a DR and find, look, you didn't ask for more CPU or memory, because it's very difficult to deal with that situation at that time. I think on our roadmap, we're looking to maybe transition that process a little bit easier, but it's pretty straightforward. Once you onboard a customer, figure out what you're going to need, just log the support ticket, the team will go and do it straight away for you, and you're all good going forward. You don't need to ask each time. So that's just in the final stages of virtualizing. One of the next things you'll see is I actually can go in and view the console. So I can actually watch the server boot. And for me, that's personally one of my really favorite things with the StorageCraft cloud is that I can actually see what's going on with my server. If it didn't boot and I can't RDP to it, I'd be quite stressed. So it's quite cool to watch that boot. That also enables us to inject recovery disks if something was really bad. We force every machine into Windows Boot Manager for 30 seconds, just in case you need to get to safe mode or something else. So we're really enabling to cater for any, worst case scenario by providing console access to the machines and giving you, that full control and power is in your hands. You don't need to call us or get support to help you. You've actually got a lot of control yourself that you can do. So, obviously testing it is important. Test your machines when you replicate them to our cloud. At any stage, you can virtualize them. As I mentioned, every machine's entitled to 30 days per year. So I can see I've got 19 left on this machine. I've actually been sitting on 0 for quite some time. So I think they've reset it back to 30 for me. But basically, there is a clause saying, look, if you do leave it running beyond 30 days, we can charge you $10 per hour per machine that's left running. So it's not, we're not trying to offer you an AWS or an Azure service. This is purpose built for DR. You need to start making a plan to migrate that back on site. So one of the things, once you're up and running, is you can come in here and request a BMR drive. That is where we will ship you back a bare metal recovery drive and give you the ability to either download the backup image or we ship it back to you. Obviously, when you ship it back or when you download it, that might take some time. So you're still running in our cloud, and what you will do while you're running is you basically pre-stage the backups back on site. So it's called a reverse head start restore. So I'm just going to click OK here at Boot Manager, which would default and time out after 30 seconds anyway, and that's now going to start booting Windows. So as you can see, very quick. But just back to what I was talking about, we can pre-stage the server back on site to some new hardware, perhaps a week or two later. And as it's restoring on site, it is automatically syncing every hour any new changes out of our cloud. So what that means is you could go to the customer, look, it's up to date, it's currently syncing every hour with the StorageCraft cloud. We need to plan an outage where we're going to cut over. So you might say, look, at lunchtime or at 5 o'clock, if everyone can please log off. And from our recovery disk on site, you simply click finalize. It will shut the VM down in the cloud. It will take a final snapshot, which will be the last hour or less. It sends that back across the internet. Within minutes, it's restored and that server is now booting again. So we can cut over very quickly by pre-staging. And again, we can either ship you back a disk with the initial data on it, or you can download it. So whichever your preference, there's no cost to revert back on site. So it's end-to-end disaster recovery. Now, just while that's booting, obviously Windows is going through its process of detecting new hardware. I'll just take you through some of the other settings in the cloud. So right back at the start here, if you add a cloud account, this is where you can go in and create a username and a password. This is basically your image manager job username and password. You also need to define your default retention options. So if you send machines to our cloud based on a service level, we'll automatically put them into the default retention that you've defined. And then, of course, per machine, you can go in and click on retention and override that global setting with something different. So it's fully customizable from that perspective. Jumping back to the actual customer account, the very next thing that's very important is the networking. So you need to consider the networking. I'll just make this a bit bigger to give us some more room to look at it. Basically, you choose a subnet in our cloud. You can set up IPsec or OpenVPN for users that might need to connect in from home. You can request public IP addresses. So you can see here, you just on the fly request public IP addresses. We recommend, these do have a small fee of around $10 a month. We recommend you request at least one per customer, and that enables you to set up the VPN and the port forwarding. The next setting is the private IP. So we list each server that you've replicated to this customer in this list, and what you can do is change them to DHCP reservation. And this allows you to define which IP you want the servers to have when they boot up. So it's fully customizable. Again, doing this in advance saves you a lot of time. And then you choose the port forwarding. So you can say, for example, on this public IP that I've requested, it might be running, RD gateway. So you want 443 opened up, or it might be running SMTP or SSL 443. you need it to go to this server here. It might be your RD server. You've set a DHCP reservation for 443, and then it's TCP. So it's very easy to add port forwarding in based on having a public IP address already requested. As mentioned, we have an option to manually configure the network. You need to ask support to turn this on for you. That gives you full access to it's a pfSense firewall that we virtualize. So you can actually control that yourself, to have more control than what we give you here if you want to. And then finally is the virtual machine policy. So again, I apologize, we just hit overtime, but I'll be 2 more minutes and then I'll look at some questions. The virtual machine policy will list all of your servers on the left. You can drag them into the policy on the right, and you basically, when you're dragging them, you're defining the encryption password to save it, as well as the sleep delay. So I've got my domain controller will boot first. As part of that, the networking will kick in. Then these other 3 servers, including my remote desktop server, will wait 4 minutes for that one to start up. Then they will automatically start booting. And then once that one's kicked in, this other server is going to come in a few minutes later as well. So by defining that policy, by setting up my networking, I've got 1 click and we'll start booting in that order, the whole lot for you. So really cool, really easy, particularly helpful in larger environments to, automate that whole process. So this server is just finally booting up. It has been a quick demo because I needed to sort of explain to you the whole solution, how it comes together. We do have a more detailed onboarding YouTube, which is available on the StorageCraft APAC YouTube channel. So if you need help, either sing out to Soft Solutions or myself, we'll guide you through that process. Soft Solutions are really skilled on our MSP pricing calculator, so they can help you through the pricing and the different options around that as well. So please do reach out. Again, if anyone's got any questions, please type them in now. This server will probably be another minute or so till it's fully booted and we'll see that backup that I created. But I'm happy to go back and answer anything now as we have sort of reached the end of the session today. So yeah, again, thanks for everyone that's turned up. I think the server we're probably 10 seconds away, and hopefully if I've selected the right backup, we'll see, there we go, SoftSol 11:20 a.m. So that was when we did the backup. It's now 11:32. So literally in 12 minutes, I've done a backup. It's sent into the StorageCraft cloud in Australia. I've virtualized it and it's now booted in full production in our cloud in 12 minutes. I did it myself, I didn't call anyone, and it doesn't cost anything. It's all included in that monthly fee. This is real stuff, guys. It's really easy. It's a really high level solution that is a great offering for our customers. Fire, theft, earthquakes, any form of major disaster where the whole site's out, you can jump in here and know that you can quickly have your customer up and running, from a backup we literally did 13 minutes ago in this instance. So really cool. Guys, I haven't seen any questions come through. I will watch it for another minute or so, just while I'm waiting for those questions. I'll just put up on here, I've got my email address and Matt's email address. So again, please do reach out. Matt, if you're still on the line, do you have anything else to add? I don't think any questions have come through. So I have got a handout there with our data sheet if anyone wants to grab that during the session. But Matt, any final words?
No, that was excellent. Thank you, Carl.
Cool. Thanks again for organising that, Matt. And again, the recording, we'll make sure that gets sent out to everyone as well. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.